And we'll close the eyes and just take these moments to arrive softly in this time and space. Feel that the body is arriving, and feel that the earth is grounding you. Feel that your energy is arriving, and that the fire within is grounding you. Feel that the mind is arriving, and that the water element is grounding you, opening you up to the potential of wisdom. Allow yourself to be conscious of your spirit, and allow the air and the space within, around, and throughout to be a container of sorts for that spirit and for that awareness of spirit. Be present completely. Say silently to yourself, I am here now. I am here now. I am. And then drawing the hands together in front of the heart, we'll lift our voices in one beautiful Om. Take a breath in. And bowing the head to the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face to center. Good morning. I know, this is fun, isn't it? So, don't let the chair be a distraction. I'm really okay, and I'm going to be okay. And whatever this is going to be is what it's going to be. And I remember when I fell, the first thing I thought was, oh goodness. And the second thing I thought was, thank goodness I hiked to the wormhole in Ireland when I did. Because I'm going back in August and I don't know if I'll be able to. You know? And I sat with that as I was practicing my pranayama, telling everybody I'm fine, just let me lay here for a few moments. And I thought to myself, thank goodness I did that. Right? And then I thought, but if I was meant to do it, I did it. And if I'm meant to do it again, I'll do it again. And if I'm attached to that idea of doing, then I won't be able to be with this. And so immediately I came into an understanding that I needed to practice Aparigraha, non-grasping. I couldn't grasp at what I did in the past, what I may or may not do in the future, what may or may come of this. I had to simply sit and be with what is. Aparigraha is such an important practice in yoga. It's one of the yamas. It tells us not to become too attached to things. My grandson came over the other day, and we were sitting there talking for a few moments. And he was sharing with me some reflections that he had about my granddaughter, who is much younger than he is. And he said, well, you know, the last time that we went somewhere, we had to leave early because Elena was young and gets a little bored like young children do. And I looked at him and I said, yeah, but Christopher, she's older now. And maybe she's changed. Because, life changes in a moment. People change in a moment. Circumstances change in a moment. So be with her where she's at. And have a little faith that things are going to be a little different this time. I don't know how, but they will. You don't know how, but they will. So the most important thing is that we keep our hearts and minds open to the change. And that we don't become disappointed in the past, the potential future, and too deeply disappointed in what's going on right now. That instead we say, this is another way of experiencing life. This is another lens through which to see the ways that I can change myself, the way that I can practice more deeply, the way that I can serve more effectively, the way I can understand more profoundly. It's just another lens to see through. And we all have that opportunity every single day. Every time we're injured, every time that we have a new relationship emerge, every time a relationship ends, every time, every moment, something is going on that is giving us the opportunity to become a better reflection, a more profound, sincere reflection of our innermost self. But we do need to practice Aparigraha. We need to practice the non-attachment. And that's so hard. It's so hard. Because we have plans, right? We make plans. We got plans. We got the best laid plans. We really do, right? It's like the best laid plans. But you know what they say about the best laid plans. Yeah. So make your plans, sure, absolutely. And have fun making your plans. But also have this conscious thought in your mind. These plans can change in a second, in a moment. I have no control over that. All I can say is that if these plans come to fruition, I will be present to them. And if they don't, I will be present to whatever is as well. This way we can be here. We can be here now. We can be here because what is it to be present? To be present is to sit and to see what is, to address what needs to be addressed, to honor the process, to show up. We don't show up when we're complaining about the past or fearing the future. We can't show up then because we're not really present. We're not really here. We're at another point in time that no longer exists or hasn't come about yet. Yoga often teaches us not to invest too much in the future. It doesn't say don't plan for a future. Like, we're all householders here. You have to plan a little bit. You got to be able to have a roof over your head to the best of your ability. Have food on your table. Feed your family to the best of your ability. So, you have to plan. But what the yoga teaches us is to be resilient within that plan. So that if you have to change the baby's doctor appointment, if something in life requires you to shift, that you're able to do it without disturbance, without being disturbed, without being distracted, and without being negatively affected. So that you don't go into that hyper crash, that hyper downfall of the ego. How can this be? This is so, so that you don't go there. And then what happens, and I'll just use the baby if that's okay as an example. Let's just say Gabby had to change the appointment for the baby, If she's in that place where she's preferring it to be another way, then her interactions with the staff, not that Gabby would ever do this, we know that, but her interactions with the doctor's staff could be argumentative, difficult, even hurtful. Then she would feel bad. Then the baby would feed on that energy. And it becomes a whole bubble of difficulty, distraction, and affectation in a negative way, in a harmful way. Instead, we show up and we say, well, okay, things have changed. So, hi, how are you today? I hope all is going well. I had something come up and I really need to change this appointment. Can you support me in this? I really appreciate your support. This way we can have humanized interactions with one another. We can listen. We can communicate what is really, truly needed. We can find a way to do so in kindness and compassion rather than argumentative violence and negativity. It's just so important. It's also equally important to understand that as we are human and we have emotions and egos and tendencies and hearts full of love and all kinds of things going on, that of course we're going to have moments of frustration. Absolutely. We're going to have moments where we lose our patience. We're going to have moments where we actually are argumentative and potentially violent with our words, with our thoughts, with our actions. But the more that we show up in a less attached manner, the more resilient we will be in our bouncing back from those tendencies. They will last for shorter periods of time. We will recognize them more quickly, and we will rediscover and re-embrace the truth of ourself more profoundly. Rather than dragging things on, days and days, weeks and weeks, months and months, years and years. Remember the person you're not talking to from your childhood? Do you even know why you're not talking to that person anymore? Right? As a human being, we tend to carry things, and we don't even know why. Sometimes we have an inkling, but most times we really don't. It's just a really good story that somewhere along the way got blown up into, a soap opera, right? What do they call the soap opera in Spanish? What do they call that? Does anybody know what the word for soap opera? Yeah. They're so hugely popular. The telenovela, right? Telenova, yeah. So hugely popular because of the drama of it all. It goes on, and that's what a soap opera does, right? Soap opera goes on and on. I used to be a General Hospital watcher, right? Anybody in here watch General Hospital? Right? Yeah. So totally, right? When I was a teenager, right? When I was a teenager, I would watch, and Luke and Laura was like all the rave, Everybody was looking for a guy like Luke, right? It's crazy, but yeah. And then I stopped watching it when, I got a little bit older in my 20s or something. Stopped watching it for years, like 20 years. Never turned it on. Then turned it on one day because I was like homesick or something. And guess who was there? Luke and Laura. Do we want our life to be a soap opera? Something that we get stuck in, that has this storyline that isn't real, that we become hyper attached to? Or do we want to be with the reality of the moment? If we want to be with the reality of the moment, we have to turn the soap opera off. I'm sorry. I know, right? But we do. If we want to be with the moment, we have to turn the soap opera off and stop investing so much in the false and instead be with what's real. And what's real is right now. Right now, she's holding that beautiful baby. Look at that beautiful baby. Look at that happy little boy. Look at him. Oh, my gosh. That beautiful baby. Oh. Right? And right now, we're here together. And right now, we're contemplating the deeper aspects of yoga. That's what we're doing right now. There's nothing else to concern ourselves with in this moment. In this moment, we are fine. We are okay in this moment. We really are. Some of you have taken my teacher training. And in the teacher training, inevitably, I give an example of time. And I say, as humans, we live in a linear timeline. We're born, we're raised, and live for some period of time. And then we no longer exist after death, in this body anyway. And that linear timeline has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And everything that happens on that timeline has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And our suffering, especially our unnecessary suffering, but the necessary also, exists on that timeline because we can point to the beginning, we can complain about the middle, and we can strive for an end. Right? But then in yoga, there's this saying, this is, suffering isn't actually real. In the esoteric aspect of yoga, suffering happens on a linear timeline that is not actual. Therefore, whatever happens on that timeline is not actual. So suffering, in a spiritual sense, is not real. And this aggravates people to no end, right? But it is actually a teaching. But here's what it means. It means that, and I'm going to give myself as an example because that's the only thing I can talk from. I fell down at the dog park. No, I had help. But I fell down at the dog park. Did I suffer? Oh, yeah, sure. On this linear timeline, when I was falling down, I had many thoughts. One of the thoughts was the dog just ran into me, and I started falling down. But I'm already on the ground. So that's now the past, right? So then this other part of my mind comes in and says, start breathing so that you don't, pass out. So I start breathing, and I'm trying to be with the breath, but there's still that part of the mind that says, The dog ran into you. The dog ran into you. And this is hurting you. But when I'm saying to myself, this hurts, what I'm reflecting on is the past moment, or the past second, minute, whatever it was, right? The moment that I connected with my breath and I closed my eyes and I'm breathing, the moment, there's no pain. There's no pain. It's only when I re-enter into the linear timeline that the pain comes back. It's only when I become the doer and I go to move, I go to do something, I go to be the author, of an experience, then suddenly there may be some pain there. But if I go back, if I return into the space of the moment, there's really not. And so that's what the teachings mean. They mean the more you go inside of yourself, the less you'll feel the repercussions of this life, the less you'll feel them. You won't be so attached to the story of what happened before, and you won't be so attached to the fear of what comes next. Instead, you'll find the peace and the harmony that naturally exist within you, no matter what's happening on that timeline. No matter where Luke and Laura are in their story, there's peace within you. Even if you see yourself, witness yourself going, "Oh, Laura, but Luke loves you," That's false in the bigger scheme of things. Well, that's false in the obvious scheme of things. So what I wanted to talk with you about today is this Aparigraha, this concept of non-attachment, of letting go, and what that actually means to us. What that actually means to us. I did an experiment with myself many years ago as I was first studying the yamas and the niyamas, and I was really quite taken by Aparigraha. And I said to myself, well, how can I work with this to understand it? And I said, well, it's very easy actually. If anything happens to me, I'm going to let go of my assumptions. Sure enough, something happened. I stubbed my toe, And you ever stub your toe? Of the whole body, right? The toe is the most painful place on the body, is it not? It's all you have to do is drop a little something on your toenail and forget about it. The world has ended. So I stubbed my toe, and typically, I'm a human being, right? So it's hopping up and down and a couple of explicatives maybe, But instead I stopped and I grounded my feet and I closed my eyes and I started breathing and I said, what is actually happening right now? What is actually happening? And I was paying attention to the throbbing experience in the toe and also to the space in between that experience, the space where there was no throbbing. And I was really taken by that. I was like, oh my God, it's not just pain. It's not just pain. I mean, the pain flares and then it goes down, flares. It's like waves in the ocean. The ocean gets irritated, the waves come up, then the ocean settles back down again. And so it's this constant back and forth. And I'm sitting there having this amazing realization. I get to choose between these two things. I get to choose between these two things. What am I going to attach myself to? You don't have to attach yourself to peace because you are peace. You are peace in a human body, mind, spirit, whatever you want to call yourself. You are peace. So you don't have to attach to that. And you can choose not to attach to the other. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be easy. I'm not saying that anything you've been through in your life is going to be easy. It's not. It's a constant coming home. Michelle. It's a constant coming home. It's a constant realization of what is helpful, what is not helpful, what is supportive, what is not supportive. Is the banter of the mind supporting the situation? Or is it really on some level just kind of making things more rigid and worse? The first doctor who I saw, as I shared with a few of you, told me that the only reason I couldn't straighten my leg was because I was afraid. Now, she had a few other things very wrong. She wasn't completely wrong about that. She was wrong about her reading of the x-ray. But she was not completely wrong, because of course there was fear. Because I'm a human being, just like you're a human being. And when something tragic or traumatic happens to us, fear comes forward. The question is, how are you dealing with that fear? That's the question. The question is, how are you facing it? How are you working with it? Every single person in this room that I know that has been here before, you've acquired tools. Are you using those tools to keep fear at a certain level and to really be with what is so that you can support yourself optimally? Are you allowing yourself to not attach to the fear and instead to be the peacefulness, no matter how rough the waters are? Does that make sense? Yeah. So we have the Yamas by Patanjali. Patanjali, for those who may or may not know, Patanjali is often called the father of yoga. He didn't create it. He wrote a book. Way back in the day, thousands of years ago, he wrote the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It was kind of like the first, what we could call technical manual of Raja Yoga, which is really strongly founded in meditation and concentration. And so he wrote this book of sutras, these short, concise statements about what yoga is, what the obstacles to yoga are, how to overcome those obstacles, and what you might experience as a result of your spiritual sadhana. So he wrote this very beautiful, beautiful treatise. And in there, he said there are 10 ethics that are necessary. They are a necessity for all spiritual seekers. And Aparigraha is in the first set of 5. So we have nonviolence is first. Nonviolence is first. Nonviolence leads to non-grasping. Nonviolence. When we are argumentative with the past and hating the past or constantly retelling the story bigger and bigger and bigger, we're being violent. When we are hating the future, scared of the future, that's a form of violence. It is a form of violence. It's accusing the future of something it hasn't even done. It hasn't even done it. You haven't even given it a chance to become what it can become. So think about that. If someone came to you and never gave you the chance to become what you could become, don't you think that's violent towards you? Of course it is. So when we look at the future and we don't give the future an opportunity to be what it's going to be, it's violent. The second one is truthfulness. And truthfulness makes a whole lot of sense because you can't be nonviolent without truth. And truthfulness is what leads us to being able to let go, of being able to become not attached, of being able to say, I've been walking with the story long enough. I'm not saying drop all your stories. Many of us have a lot of psychological work that needs to be done, a lot of emotional work that needs to be done. It's work that allows us, it's the personal, the deep inner work that allows us to let go of those stories, that allows us to stop being so afraid. It's the personal work. But the nonviolence and the truthfulness provide us with the strength and the resiliency to start the letting go. To say to ourselves, what can I release in this moment? What can I release? And maybe sometimes it's tears, right? Sometimes it's tears because we hoard them. We keep them in and we say, I'm going to be strong. Bullshit.
The tears are coming down my face.
Yeah. Crying is not weakness. Crying is a necessary rebalancing of your inner self. Crying is a necessary rebalancing. When crying is not healthy? When it's for no purpose. Like crocodile tears. That's when it's not healthy. But when you've got a damn good reason to cry, then cry. Give yourself that. It's healing. Right? So don't grasp onto the idea that strength looks a certain way. Oh, gotta be strong. Gotta get up, do all my own stuff. Gotta suck it in. No. Truthfulness is recognizing what is versus what really isn't. And then doing whatever it is that we can do within ourselves with the tools that we've acquired so far to be with what is. Aparigraha. It's just so amazing. And then we come, Aparigraha is actually the fifth. We come to Brahmacharya. Or actually, no, we come to Asteya. I'm so sorry. Oh, a little loopy. And we come to Asteya. Asteya is non-stealing. And when we talk about Asteya, the third of the yamas, you say, well, obviously, don't go steal things that don't belong to you. But here's the thing also. Don't steal your own inner peace. Don't steal that away from yourself in favor of something that is transient, temporary, and maybe not very well understood at all, or just completely false. Don't steal your own inner peace. Don't steal your own capacity to love. Don't steal your own capacity for joy. Don't steal your own presence from yourself. Don't steal your own tears. Don't. Because those are the things that actually mean something. Your presence, your love, your joy, your tears, those are the things that actually mean something. The fear, now don't get me wrong, the fear can be an indicator. Fear has a role to play for us. It really does. Sometimes when it's appropriate, it plays the part of keeping us safe or trying to. But we take it like a drug and we misuse it and mislabel it. So it's not as purposeful nowadays as what it potentially was at another point in time. Nowadays, we just live in fear all the time, 24/7, and that's ridiculous. Because most of that 24/7, you're perfectly fine. You're perfectly fine. If you all sat down right now, close your eyes. Let's do that. Sit down, close your eyes. Take a breath in and a breath out. Allow the far reaches of the mind to become still. And allow that stillness to come closer and closer to you. Allow the present, the moment, to come closer and closer until you recognize that you're actually in the moment and there is no past and no future. And now focus on the breath. Just follow the flow of the breath in this moment. See yourself, witness yourself. Feel the energy of your being, the radiant gift of light and life. And recognize that in this moment, you are okay. And then flutter the eyes open. Are any of you not okay? Do you have problems? Sure. They'll be there later. Are there other things in life? Sure. But in this moment, is there anybody who would say you're not okay? You're okay. So focus on that more. Don't steal that from yourself. Let the okayness come through a little more. You don't have to wipe away all the habits and tendencies completely right now, but hold some space for yourself. That beautiful saying, so many great sayings in the spiritual world today. Hold space for yourself. And everybody thinks that means go get a pedicure, right? It doesn't mean go get a pedicure. It means sit down, close your eyes, and recognize your okayness. It means hold space for yourself. It doesn't mean go tell everybody exactly what you think of them. That's not what it means. It means sit down, close your eyes, and recognize your own okayness. Because whatever else you have to say to anybody else is useless. Unless you recognize your own okayness and you're willing to see, feel, taste, touch, think, and be from somewhere in the vicinity of that okayness, everything else that we have to say is shaded by fear and trepidation and dissatisfaction. But when we come from that place of, in this moment I really can be okay, and if I am okay, and if I am okay in this moment, then guess what else I can be? Compassionate, consciously present, kind, patient, nonviolent, truthful, non-stealing. Practice brahmacharya, the fourth of the yamas. Brahmacharya, the word Brahma or Brahman is God. Is that universal consciousness, right? And the word charya has many different meanings, but one of the meanings is student, and another meaning is to be like or to reflect. So brahmacharya is to be like that, universal consciousness. It's to be like that. And if you think that God is a God of love, then brahmacharya is telling you, then be like that. Be like that. If you think God is a God of patience and great creativity, and by God I don't mean a gender. There's no gender for God. God is genderless. But, I just watched last night again Dogma. Do you remember Dogma?
Yes, yeah.
Alanis Morissette as God. Oh, it's such a great movie. Such a great movie. It's not available anywhere, but my son somehow has it. Yeah. So we watched that, and here comes God, and all these people in the movie until what's her Thelma Hayek? Hayek, thank you. Thelma Hayek mentions it, because she's like the muse, right? And she said, "Oh, God's a female." It's like, what are you all talking, men? God's a female. And then, toward the end, here comes Alanis with her little outfit on and looking all angel-like, right? And what does she do? She goes over and smells the flowers, does a handstand at the tree where she falls down. She gets back up. She laughs at herself. And when one of the main characters says to her at the very end, I'm sure everybody asks you this, but I have to ask, why are we here? Why are we here? And what does she do? She takes her pointer finger. She touches her nose and she goes, boop. And she walks away. I mean, how precious and silly is that? And it's like, so what does that mean? Love. Just pure love. Just pure joy. Just pure presence. Just pure. When was the last time you smelled the flowers? When was the last time you booped somebody? When was the last time you booped yourself? I missed. Whoops. When was the last time you booped yourself, right? Yeah. So brahmacharya, to be like that, to be like God, to be like the goodness of God, to study the goodness of God, and then to emulate that goodness. Not because you're emulating something that is outside of you, but because you're rediscovering your innermost truth. And that's just such a beautiful journey. Such a beautiful journey. And then, Aparigraha, non-grasping. Non-grasping is the result of all these things, and it's also necessary for us to practice non-grasping in order to experience all these others. Yeah. And non-grasping doesn't mean that we deny. It's not denying. It's not living through rose-colored glasses. It is not that. Non-grasping says, I have a particular narrative, and I recognize that. And I'm going to expand my consciousness, my heart, and my mind to consider other narratives. And the more narratives that I consider, the more I see how much I actually do misunderstand and how much I'm missing by sticking to this one narrative. And if your narrative is inner peace and wholeness, then great, stick with that, okay? That's the, if we're going to have a goal, that's the goal. But if your narrative is, I am small, insignificant, incomplete, unworthy, broken even, right? Akhilandeshwari, the goddess who is never not broken. Never not broken. Her teaching to us is that your brokenness is your spirituality, so stop complaining about it. Stop wishing that it wasn't so, and instead be with it. Be with it. That way, you can be with yourself more peacefully, more wholly, and more completely. Yeah. Time check. Questions or comments, reflections at this point? You look like you're thinking.
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Questions, comments, or reflections?
It's just self-acceptance, that very last piece.
Yeah. It's not easy, is it?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, it's a daily practice.
It is a daily practice. And it's a practice that we become far too caught up in blaming other people for our inability or ability to accept ourselves. We say, well, I could accept myself if you would let me. Whether we're talking about our parents, our friends, our enemies, to our lovers, whoever it happens to be, we say to other people, tell me I'm worth it. That's not self-acceptance. That's a crutch. I can tell you right now, crutches are not easy to walk on. They're actually a little bit dangerous. Yeah. So stay away from that, Stop looking to other people to value you. They can't value themselves. How on earth do you think they're going to find value in you? You have to find the value in you. You have to do the work. In the story of the Mother Durga, when she was in this amazing battle for the wellness of the world and all the people of the world, she was facing, or she was trying to face, this demon, Mahishasura. And in some stories, it's Chamunda, but she's telling Mahishasura's assistant, like his colonel or general or whatever that's serving under him, she's saying, go tell him he must come here and battle me. And he sends his demons, 2 at a time, typically. And he says, go get her, go bring her to me. She'll be my wife, we'll force her. Go get her, go do this work for me. 2 by 2, they go down. They go, they're done. She ends them. And she sends the assistant back and tells him and says, go tell him, I can only marry the one who can defeat me in battle. He has to battle me. It doesn't matter how many demons he sends. If he doesn't come here and do it himself, it means nothing. Oh, wow. If he doesn't come here and do it himself, it means nothing. If you and I don't show up and do the work ourselves and accept responsibility for the work, spiritual responsibility for the work, then the work means nothing because it's just a projection rather than an introspection. So don't look to anybody else for your value. Somebody doesn't treat you well, then that's an issue they have. That's an issue they have. And you do not need to accept that. Somebody doesn't treat you well, then you hold a boundary. And you acknowledge that you are here to commit your dharma. And maybe, just maybe, part of your dharma is teaching that person about boundaries. You don't know. But it certainly isn't teaching them how to become more violent. It certainly isn't teaching them how to latch on to you and blame you for everything in their life. Would you agree? That's not your dharma. Your dharma is not to make excuses. Your dharma is to teach yourself, and then through example, to be a teacher to others as well. That's your dharma, is to serve the greater healing and the greater goodness. Yeah. So one of the things that we need to do is stop looking out, with the blame and say, I could find myself if it wasn't for the way my parents raised me. Well, I was raised in a pretty cruddy atmosphere. I think I'm doing okay, I know a lot of people who were raised in pretty cruddy atmospheres, and they're doing pretty good too, right? And I would assume that many of the people in this room have had hardships in their youth and in their childhood, and they have some complaints. But you're doing pretty good, aren't you? After all, you're here. You're seeking. So let them off the hook. They were suffering too. Leave them alone. Leave it in the past. The past is no longer happening. What's happening right now is you're finding yourself. You're rediscovering yourself. You're coming into terms with yourself. So let that be your focus, and not a past that you cannot change, not a past that you cannot relive. And don't let a future that you cannot control condemn you either. Just be here now in a way that honors the potential of who you are and what you are, in a way that honors the potential of your light. Great reflection. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Questions or reflections? Yeah? Let's sit quietly for a few moments. So sitting tall with the eyes closed, place the hands into the lap, clasping the fingers together and then taking the tips of the pointer fingers so that they touch, and then the tips of the thumbs so they touch. So you're creating a bit of a triangle. And you're just going to let that rest in your lap. That's called the Shakti Mudra, the mudra of the divine essence of energy. And then with the eyes closed, just focus on that mudra. Focus on the tips of the fingers touching. And focus on the gentle subtleness of the touching of the fingertips. So don't press, don't resist. Just let there be a connection. Allow there to be a connection. Breathing in through the nostrils, draw the breath all the way to the extremities of the body. And breathing out, allow there to be relief. Relief, a settling of sorts, a being. And go between these two things gently. The subtle connection between the tips of the pointer fingers and thumbs, and the flow of energy. Know yourself to exist in the space between. Know yourself to exist in the space between the connections and the space between the breath, the space within, and the space beyond. Now allow identification with the hands and with the breath to dissolve. Bring your awareness to the space behind the third eye center, between the eyebrows. Allow yourself to dissolve into the nothingness that's there, the spaciousness. And in this very moment, recognize your own wholeness, that there is not a space within this universe that you do not occupy, that you are complete because you are, in essence, all of this. Allow yourself to see that in this moment you are okay. Allow yourself to release your guard and to simply be in peace. And then draw the hands together in front of the heart. And together we'll lift our voices in one Om and the All Beings mantra. Take a breath in. Om. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Bowing the head toward the heart, acknowledging all that is. And draw the face to center, releasing the hands. Thank you all so much for being here. So wonderful to gather with each and every one of you. My wish for you, my hope and my prayer for you is that you know peace. And that in the moments where you don't believe peace is possible, that you open your heart and mind just a little bit as if you were to crack a window, and you give yourself a breath of fresh air so that you can be reminded that peace is always present within you. Always. Yeah. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome.
Yes.
Very welcome. Very welcome. I hope that you enjoy your brunch if you haven't had it already. And if you did, I hope it was really good, because I'm having some too. And I know they put good stuff out of that kitchen, don't they? So be sure to say thank you to Linda and to DJ, please, for serving your nutritious needs. And now, we don't know moving forward for the next few weeks what's going to happen.